why do women self-sabotage relationships in the early stages so often? There is a divine wisdom in women self-sabotaging. Self-sabotage is the higher part of yourself making you, quote-unquote, ruin a relationship that wasn't meant for you. Was that person you, quote-unquote, self-sabotage with meant for you? No. So, by definition, there has to be some level of deep wisdom in each of those sabotages. That self-sabotage is the wisdom, the wise part in you saying, hey, this isn't for you. I'm going to sabotage it to lead you to your next person. So there is serious wisdom in self-sabotage. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the New Age Sage podcast. And we're on a little dating streak here. My process is kind of just to explain whatever I've thought through or have realized recently. And, I feel like we're in an era right now, maybe where people are sensitive to dating and want to find their person. Maybe that's why I'm tapping into it. But essentially, the problem I'm going to present in the dating market that I'm going to offer a solution to is the widespread, hyper-prevalent manifestation of self-sabotage in women in the dating process. You hear the common examples of a woman being like, man, I like this guy. I don't know why I sabotaged it. Or he was so nice, but that's always the sentiment with the ladies is he was so nice, but, or, I can't believe I did that. I got so emotional. I did this. This guy was so amazing, but like that is the common sentiment with women. This guy was so amazing. I don't know why I did what I did. Right? And then on the flip side, for men, you often hear men saying, man, the things were going so well. It was amazing. But then she, went crazy. She got possessive. She got jealous. This one's super popular. She got super distant, started playing games. So on the men's side, the men feel like things were going so well. And then all of a sudden, she just started pulling these moves and these things that were so disparate to who she was when I first met her. Such as, you have an amazing first date. You really feel that connection. I mean, I've had it personally. I've had my cousin, so many of my best friends have had this experience with women, which is amazing first date. They feel connected, and then all of a sudden, the woman self-sabotages. It'd be different if it was a shitty first date, but often when it's a shitty first date, the second one usually comes around faster. So why when there's a really good first date with a woman, the common experience for men to notice she really backs away or does something really strange to sabotage the relationship? Now, the investigation I'm here to solve is why do women self-sabotage relationships in the early stages so often? My answer, surprisingly, is there is a divine wisdom in women self-sabotaging. So if you're a woman who frequently sees her past relationships or past romantic escapades or endeavors frequently end in you looking back and being like, why was I so dumb? Why did I pull that crazy stunt? There's actually a deep divine wisdom in you doing that. So let's unpack the linguistics of self-sabotage. The self, the archetype of the self in Jungian psychology is the part of your psyche that knows it all. The king, the queen of your psyche that is kind of pulling the strings, right? Your unconscious makes decisions before you even know what they're doing. So like all your decisions are basically made by your unconscious mind. Now, the unconscious mind is a cesspit of many different archetypes and different versions of yourself. In that strata of beings inside your mind, there has to be one that knows. That kind of is like the director of the unconscious that can pull things up into your mind, right? If your unconscious mind is a database of many different ideas, personalities, things, there is a deity inside that consciousness, inside each person that brings up certain things in the logos of the unconscious for you to sit with and deal with, right? Jung called it the self. The self is the part of yourself that knows more than your ego that's helping you realize your wisdom and divine nature. That self in spirituality is called the higher self, right? In Jungian psychology, the more relatable linguistical sense is the self. The all-encompassing part of your psyche that knows more than your ego, that's guiding you and helping you beyond your knowledge. Okay. Now that we understand the archetype of the self, let's use that same definition and apply it to self-sabotage, right? When you say self-sabotage, you think you're, some negative part of you is coming in and fucking you over. No. Self-sabotage is the higher part of yourself making you, quote unquote, ruin a relationship that wasn't meant for you, right? If you self-sabotage a relationship, by definition, it wasn't meant for you. So there was some wisdom by the self, the higher self, to, quote unquote, sabotage a relationship to show you and lead you to the person that's better for you. So what self-sabotage really means is that there was a higher wisdom in your unconscious mind that, quote unquote, created a perception in your mind from the unconscious that made you make a move to turn away from the relationship and make that person not like you. But in the higher scheme of things, the grand scheme of things, that self-sabotage is the wisdom, the wise part in you saying, hey, this isn't for you. I'm going to sabotage it to lead you to your next person. So there is serious wisdom in self-sabotage. If I were to look back at all my relationships that I quote unquote self-sabotage, you know what? Let's do this. If you're a woman, look back on all the relationships you quote unquote self-sabotaged. Now, was that person you quote unquote self-sabotaged with meant for you? No. So by definition, there has to be some level of deep wisdom in each of those sabotages. Self-sabotage by definition means that you unconsciously, without knowing, sabotaged it, okay? So if you did it unknowingly, but the unknowingness created a move and an outcome that actually was beneficial for you because that person wasn't meant for you, there was wisdom in that. Self-sabotage is the higher self coming in and saying, hey, this isn't meant for you. Let's move this away. To create evidence for why women do this, why women self-sabotage, and why there's deep wisdom in it, I'm going to present a story, a fable, if you will, of modern day romance, right? Before I go into diving into the story, I'd like to explain why mythology is often the greatest example or of an answer to a deep problem in the collective psyche. Think of a super popular rom-com, okay? You have millions of women across the world relating to this story. They feel seen, they feel heard. They keep watching it over and over again. Why? Right? Like, why is this story of the movie, the myth, so inspiring and awe-inducing for the person, right? Because the myth is basically a fable showing the person an arc, a discovery of something they themselves want to win over and win, right? Each hero's journey, and the rom-com is essentially the hero's journey for the woman, right? The woman has some issue, and then she overcomes it to find love. That's the rom-com arc. Now, each story unconsciously has certain symbols that our unconscious mind relates to, and we find significance in the myth, even if we don't know it, right? Like, people will read the Bible and think the stories are literal, and they feel inspired by them, but the stories aren't literal. They didn't happen. What happens is the symbols of the stories are so relatable and are so ingrained into our psyche from years and years of evolution that we relate to the stories as moral ways to find ourselves, right? So mythology is a way for our unconscious mind to relate to a story that symbolizes our journey in our unconscious mind that we have to overcome and endure, right? A good myth is a warning sign to the psyche, the unconscious mind of, hey, here is what is yet to come, right? This problem you're having is the same problem the protagonist in the movie is having, and you're relating to the myth because you want to find a solution, right? And the myths actually give us the solutions if we look into the symbolism deeper, right? Okay, so the myth we're using for this self-sabotage with woman example is, shockingly, how to lose a guy in 10 days. You know, my Sundays, my day of rest, I like to watch a shitty movie just to, ease my mind. And little did I know that how to lose a guy in 10 days presented this problem that I'm explaining in the most definitive, exact, beautiful way to show a solution to this problem and to why it exists, okay? So, let me explain the myth. If you haven't seen the movie, skip over maybe the next couple minutes. Okay. Essentially, the plot is the protagonist, male protagonist, Matthew McConaughey, wants to present and be responsible for a key lucrative deal in his jewelry business for ad business to create advertisements for a massive diamond jewelry company, right? So it's like a big ticket for him to find salvation, to find the kingdom per se. Mythologically, like that promotion is him finding the kingdom of riches and diamonds. Diamond is symbolically the purest, the most exquisite of stones. So him finding the diamond is essentially finding the highest version of himself, finding the kingdom, right? For him to find that kingdom, that diamond, he has to win over a woman that his boss pointed out to him, saying, hey, if you make this girl fall in love with you in 10 days, you will have access to the account for the diamond advertiser. Okay. However, now this is the key point of plot in the movie. The female protagonist, Kate Hudson, her mission is to write an article about how to lose a guy in 10 days, which means that essentially each day she will present a crazy move to push the man away to make him lose her. And she is a perfect candidate for this article because she is very hot. Okay. So he has to make a girl fall in love with him that she's trying to make him not fall in love with him and actually make him disgusted by her. And he has to make this girl fall in love with him who wants nothing to do with him and to lose him to access the kingdom. So here we essentially have the problem in the plot. So over the 10 days, this woman does everything possible to lose him. She pulls the crazy stunt. She buys him a dog out of nowhere. A woman did that to me when I was dating her. She bought a dog out of nowhere, and that made me go away faster than ever. So if a guy conquers that, that he really likes her. So bought him a dog, redecorated his house with pink clothing. Took him to a basketball game, was so obnoxious. Did the worst possible things you could imagine. Showed up at his office with, demanding him and being nagging. Like, did the worst stereotypical things for a woman to push a guy away every single day, over and over again for 10 days, right? However, each time she pulled the quote-unquote crazy, stereotypical, wild, feminine move, he came back. He said, hey, what's going on here? Like, don't worry. Like, I see you. I got you. Don't worry. And even when he almost blew over, right, when she pulled the craziest move ever, when she showed up to his guys' night poker game and, started screaming and throwing shit, he was like, I'm done. But then, he ran down the fire escape, grabbed her and said, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'll never do that again. And through this process, she ends up falling in love with him, right? So through the process of her showing him the worst sides of herself that would push any guy away, but he stays there, showing up over and over again with an open heart, she falls in love with him. Okay. Why am I telling you this? What's the significance here? Okay. So I'll unpack the story symbolically. Is that a word? Symbolically? I'll display my knowledge of the symbolism to show you why a woman fell in love with a guy who basically tolerated her going insane. Okay. The feminine is chaotic. And you can call me misogynistic, but it's not the woman, it's the feminine in all of us. And there's beauty in the chaos, right? Because the feminine in each of us stirs up emotion. It stirs up the feeling function. And that feeling function is then observed by the masculine to then do something from it. Why do I feel this way? What's going on here? How can I use this to create art? How can I use... That's why the muse essentially is the stirring up of emotion in the man to create art, to then use the masculine, the mind, to make sense of the emotion. So the feminine, by nature, woman, are emotionally chaotic. That's the feminine. That's the feeler. And this is evidenced by the biology, right? Women have a cycle where they feel deeply different emotions and become different people over the course of a cycle. This is backed by science. I am not misogynistic for saying this. This is backed by science. And I know women who basically change their diet and change their habits to suit the stages of their cycle, and their man does it and also helps them through that. And they are the most psychologically healthy women I've ever met. The most psychologically unhealthy women I've met are women who repress their feeling function during the cycle and end up, basically becoming men, becoming super masculine. And that part of woman who needs to feel and move and dance chaotically and become super angry one day and be super happy one day, that essentially is the feminine. The feminine is the ability to feel, the feeling function, to be sensitive, to be seen, to have the freedom to be super angry one day and then be super light one day and to dance one day and to be in bed watching rom-coms, eating popcorn all day. That chaotic dance of the feminine is the feminine. And for a woman to feel truly safe, she has to know that the man can handle her dancing in the chaos. A woman in her feminine must know, hey, can this guy truly see me and not want to stop and control my wildness? Can he support my aliveness? Can he handle me dancing all day one day? Can he handle me being in bed all day crying? Can he handle me being angry one day? Can he handle my full wildness, For a woman to feel safe and seen, she has to know that the man can handle the wildness, because if he can't, she will then suppress that in herself unconsciously and become this suppressed, quiet, not beautifully vibrant, loud being, right? So the healthy feminine has to know that the masculine can be there with an open heart while she dances and moves. Okay. What? How is this correlated to the myth I presented? The female protagonist displayed the wildness of chaos in the feminine, right? The shadow of it, the beauty of it, to show the most expressive, vibrant, loud feminine version of herself. And this guy stayed by her. To her, the symbolism, right? The feminine, for her, it's like, I showed my most wild self. And this guy not only stayed by me, but he allowed me to express it and saw me and loved me. That feeling is how a woman falls in love. When a woman, a good woman, a good feminine, safe female, when she realizes that this guy can see me and love me when I express myself wildly, that's when her heart melts. That's when she feels safe. When a woman melts into the masculine, it's because she knows I can be wild. And this guy will not leave. He won't judge me. He'll support me and love me. That is when a woman melts. A woman feels deeply unsafe when she feels like she can't express her wildness because her masculine partner will want to control it and dumb down the volume to make her feel safe to him so he doesn't feel wild, right? A good man, has to stay with an open heart and allow the feminine to dance wildly and not lose his center. When a man does that, the feminine feels deeply safe. Okay. So what the myth showed essentially is that a woman needs to know that she can dance wildly in her feminine and have the guy stick by her, that's a requisite to falling in love. Now, how does this relate to the topic of the episode, which is why do women self-sabotage? Okay. Because again, our unconscious mind, as I explained, self-sabotage is the higher self inside ourselves pushing up certain things in our mind to act out, to create the best outcome for our somatic, higher spiritual, even psychological being. Okay. So, because the feminine inside the woman, the divine feminine inside the woman knows that for me to be fully divine, I have to know this guy can see me and accept my wildness. So for her to do that, unconsciously, she will push up, the need to take space, the need to be emotional in front of the man, the need to lash out and get jealous and grab his phone. These aren't good. I'll explain a better way to do this, but the feminine in ourselves will push up these things to basically make the man step up, to see, okay, I'm going to show you something crazy. And I have to know that you will stay by me. You will stick by me. She wants to know that this man will still love me if I display my chaos, right? Because for a woman, imagine you're a woman and you have a honeymoon phase. You fall in love. Everything's amazing. He gets you pregnant, right? And then in that pregnancy, you become very emotional. You're sad, you're grieving, you're getting postpartum, you feel amazing one day, and all of a sudden you realize that this guy only wanted the best side of you during the honeymoon phase, or you were just happy and feminine the whole time, and you couldn't handle your shadow, right? When a woman knows that the man can't handle all of her, she gets depressed because she can't express. Depression is the lack of expression. Female depression occurs when their masculine partner can't handle their loudest expression, right? So a lot of women get depressed because they can't express themselves because the masculine is scared of their volume. So a woman, to feel safe, has to know, can you handle my loudest expression? Because if that man cannot, she will get depressed. So in that courtship phase, she will show unconsciously different wildness so that she can see, hey, can this guy handle my expression so I don't get depressed in the future, right? We're going to have children together. I have to, you're going to support me financially and, I'm going to sacrifice my life for you. I have to know you can handle all of me, right? So women self-sabotage unconsciously because they have to know that this guy can handle my loudest expression. Okay. That's the synthesis of this show. Now, what I explained is a deeply unconscious process, as evidenced by the examples I laid out in the initial part of the podcast, which is woman will say, man, he was so amazing, but I pulled this crazy move. The guy was so nice, but I did this wild thing. I checked his phone, right? Woman will do these things and unconsciously have no idea, right? And unconsciousness is not something we desire, right? Because we want to have awareness is basically pulling the shadow out of the mind and saying, I have control over this stuff. I can dictate when I lash out, and I can do it consciously, right? Acting out the unconscious shadow feminine manifests as manipulation, aggressiveness, moodiness, right? In an uncontained way. And there's still wisdom in that, because that uncontained shadow has to be displayed unconsciously to test the man to reveal himself, right? But that unconsciously leads to dark tendencies such as manipulation, as I said, cheating, looking through their phone, being aggressive, gossiping about him behind his back. That, even though there's wisdom in it, as I explained, that same process can be done consciously, right? So, let me lay this out in an equation. The outcome you want, women want, is to know that the man can handle all of you in your loudest expression. Right. Okay. The way women are going about it is unconscious, and they're not aware of the fact they're testing that, right? Now, you can have the same result, which is knowing that a man can handle your loudest expression. You can have that result. However, you can do it consciously. You can consciously test him, and test him isn't actually the right linguistics here. You can showcase sides of yourself in your wild feminine that can invite the masculine to step up in his divine masculine, right? So the linguistics and thought process I want to invite you ladies to is, can I invite the masculine that's courting me to step up in his divine fashion by me displaying my wildness in a conscious way? That's a more healthy way of testing the man to see if he can handle all of you. Okay, how do I do that? How can I possibly do that? Now, there's different tests here. I'm going to lay out 3, 4 maybe ways to test the man in this way, right? Firstly, obviously in the initial stages, first day or two, have fun. Just to see if there's compatibility, if you actually vibe with this person. Once the vibe check, sorry to sound like I'm 15, if the vibe check passes, now we can start inviting the man to step up, right? And the first move I recommend is, what feels vulnerable to say to the man, right? What in your body at the third date feels vulnerable, right? That vulnerability, it can ultimately be, hey, I like you. I've had past experiences where I've been, manipulated, abused, and I'm invested in knowing if you're a safe man. And that process may take time, but I'm just really doing my best to trust you. Or that can mean, hey, I don't know if you like me, and I have insecurities from my past. How do you feel about me? Or, if a wound is being arised, if he's, not communicating well, you can say, hey, when you don't communicate well, it's not cutting it for me because it reminds me of me when I was a kid, right? When you reveal your vulnerability, when you reveal what feels sensitive, and we all have those moments in dating, right? If you don't feel vulnerable and sensitive in a dating dynamic, you might be psychopathic. We all have our wounding, vulnerable spots, right? So when you feel that invitation to reveal your vulnerability, to reveal your unease, that's the first test, right? Reveal your vulnerability and see how he reacts, right? A man in his unhealthy masculine will try and shut down the vulnerability by saying, no, right? He doesn't see you, right? So the test should be, can this man see me and witness me and understand me and not judge me and not fix me in my vulnerability? Can he offer reassurance without judging me, right? So if the the revealed vulnerability is, I don't know if you like me and I feel insecure, it's like, oh, I can understand why you feel insecure. I see you, I'm with you. I get it. I also feel insecure in some ways. I want to let you know that I like you, and I understand why you feel that way, but there's no, don't feel you have to do that with me. Just ask for reassurance when you need it. I got you, right? A man unhealthy be like, what? Like, he just doesn't know how to handle. He kind of will, when you reveal vulnerability to a man that's not in his divine masculine, feel his body. Like, if you feel unsafe, like oh my, I don't know how to handle this. He's looking around the room. He's not present with you. This is if a man's not present with you when you reveal your vulnerability, he's not able to handle your expression, right? If you can't handle your vulnerability and you're shaking, like, well, I don't know what to say, he can't handle your vulnerable expression, right? So, number one test: How does he handle your vulnerability? If he handles it with empathy and love and curiosity, that's a good sign. Okay, that's test one or invitation one. Now, the second one here is like, men will say dumb shit. I say dumb shit all the fucking time, all the time. Now, I can say misogynistic things sometimes. I'm not perfect. I can say racist things sometimes. I'm not perfect, right? We're not none of us are perfect. I can say a bad joke sometimes, right? But I'm very unfiltered. That's the person I am. Now, a man will say dumb shit. Now, another invitation is to reveal how a comment he made that made you emotional or angry makes you feel, right? If he says something you perceive as misogynistic, if he says that like, man, that waitress was looked so fat. Again, it's a terrible example. I don't know what to say. And you were like, oh wow, that comment you made me feel super angry, and I don't think it was right. I don't want to control what you say, but that doesn't resonate with me, and I want to know why you say something like that, right? Now, the way the man responds to that, if he gets defensive, like, I can say that. What are you talking about? That's not healthy masculine, right? If he slows down and says, oh wow, why did it make you feel that way? What it reminds you of? I'm gonna do my best to be conscious of how I speak of that in the future. So the test here is to see how a man reacts to your reaction and reactions to his commentary, right? Because the feminine by nature in a relationship feels into the words a man says, right? A feminine is diligent and militant about the words a man says, right? If a man is not true to his word, a feminine being will feel loud and expressive and like, what? You told me this thing. Like, what's going on here? A man not being careful with his language is a deep, deep, deep source of sensitivity for the feminine. So by nature, you will call out his speech in a way that makes you feel more safe. And that's actually good for the man, because a man should be more intentional with his language. That's actually allowing the divine masculine to step up. Now, in the initial stages of courtship, you can test that by revealing, hey, that comment you made didn't sit right, and see how he reacts. If he's defensive and doesn't want to accept it and ignores you and denies it and judges you, that's not the king that's right for you. Okay. Women will get these random surges of energy to feel chaotic and free, to play, to dance, to move freely, right? This can mean literally you're sitting down at the guy's crib. He puts on the perfect song, and you just get up and start moving, dancing. You move. You literally just start dancing. Or, if you're in bed post intercourse and you just start making a funny voice or a wild joke, like, honor that playful side of the feminine that's just random, chaotic. It just says random shit. We'll dance randomly. We'll twerk randomly. We'll yell randomly. Like, test that randomness. Just honor that complete random inner child feminine being. It just is wild. That says wild things. That speaks and dances chaotically. Like, just like, I know it sounds super fucking strange, but like, just try it. Just try saying some weird shit and see how he reacts. Because that weirdness is a loud expression of the feminine. The ability to feel free and just being wild and being funny and playful. That see how he reacts, right? Because some men will see that and be like, what the fuck is this chick doing? Stop dancing. Stop being weird. Ew. If a man reacts like that, he can't handle you. He can't handle your weirdness. A man who can handle your weirdness is a man who will handle your loudest expression and won't repress your expression. And that repression of your expression will lead to depression. So you do not want a man who cannot handle your wildness. And the way to test if he can handle that wildness is to be weird. Dance, twerk randomly, yell randomly, laugh weirdly. Just see how he can handle that. And if he passes the test, and essentially means if he can laugh with you, if he can love you deeper when you play wildly, that's the right man. If he judges you and shames you for expressing yourself, not the right man. Okay. Now, lastly, the last test. Do you need to take space sometimes as a woman to gather your emotions? In my experience with the feminine, sometimes they have to retreat to feel and just gather their senses if they feel too chaotic, right? As women, you guys can sometimes, as men too, anyone can feel too chaotic in their emotional expression, and a healthy person will take a step back and take a day or hour or two in the space to be like, hey, I need to process this thing. in the initial stages of courtship, right? That woman sometimes needs space in the initial stages of courtship to, and this is why. A man who can't handle a feminine being taking space is a man who is deeply needy. When a man is deeply needy, he needs you to be a certain way to make him feel seen and loved. If he needs you to be a certain way to feel seen and loved, he will control you. So a needy man will control you in a way to not express yourself in your wildest expression and repress you, to depress you and make you easier to control. So the way to test this essentially is to, when you feel the need for space initially in courtship, which is why women take space sometimes, to see, hey, can this guy not lose his shit with a day of space? So when you have that feeling, honor it, take it, and see how he reacts. If he respects it, he sees it, then great. If he gets needy and triple texts, not the right guy, right? So you want a guy who can handle your space, because a guy who can't handle your space is a guy who's deeply needy, right? Okay. Now, when you do all these things, make sure you are very expressive in your communication, right? In your vulnerability, like, don't manipulate. You don't allow yourself to manipulate when you are very, very clear in your communication, right? Again, we don't want to play games and manipulate, because we'll attract that in a man. I'm saying we like I'm a girl. Women will attract that in a man if they manipulate and play games. So in this testing phase, be very clear in your communication. When you're vulnerable, be very vulnerable about what you're doing. When you're, emotional, angry, like, express these things clearly. Don't manipulate. Don't go unconscious. Being clear in our communication is the way to avoid being unconscious. Before commitment, make sure the man can handle all these different tests. Because if he can't handle you taking space, if he can't handle you being vulnerable, if he can't handle you being expressive, if he can't handle you dancing wildly, he cannot handle all of you. If he cannot handle all of you, he will repress your expression, which would lead to depression. So before you commit to a man, you have to know he can handle all these sides of you, which is why in the myth, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, she only falls in love once she realizes that he can handle all of her in her wildest expression. Now, being in your feminine requires that a man can handle all of your loudest expression, because in that loudest expression, you can feel safe to be yourself. You are not on guard and mobilized to protect yourself when there's nothing to protect. Because when you can be free and express yourself freely, there's nothing to protect. Women who protect themselves because they feel like this part of themselves can't be accepted and seen by a man. When you know that this man can accept and see that part of you, the protection goes away. So to feel free and not protected and guarded, you have to find a man who can allow you to exist and express yourself in your loudest expression. Now, the male solution, if you're a guy watching this, it's also good for women to know this, to also see a guy healthily handling these tests. If you're a guy watching this, here's some things to know. If you like a girl and you feel like she is self-sabotaging, if she's taking space, if she's, checking your phone, being wild, insecure, and running away, do this. If you feel like the feminine is testing you and going chaotic and taking space, tell her, hey, I see you. I accept all of you. I'm not moving. I'm not leaving, no matter what you pull. I'm here, 10 toes down. I'm with you. You can dance chaotically. You can be yourself. You can express yourself freely. I'm here with you. I know what you're doing. I know you're trying to sabotage this. Just know I'm here, right? When a woman in her safe feminine feels this, that, oh, wow, he knows what I'm doing here. He knows I have to know he's a safe man. He's staying here. That can melt her. And don't say it just to get in her pants. Do not do that. Please don't do that. Please, please, please. If you truly like a girl and you want her to stay because you like her so much and want to explore it, she has to know that you can accept all sides of herself. So when she inevitably becomes chaotic and emotional and takes space, let her know, this part of you isn't scaring me. I'm with you. I see you. I like you. I'm here for you. Now, if she freezes and becomes more chaotic from this, she's not ready, right? She's invested in continually testing men to be inadequate because she's invested in not feeling like men are safe, right? When women are invested in men being dangerous, not safe, and bad people, they will constantly attract men and test them in a way to confirm this hypothesis. So if you're dating a feminine person who plays games and you call her out on it and she keeps playing them, just know you can't conquer her heart because she's invested in you being a dud, right? Women who love games play them constantly because they want men to fall for them so they can reconfirm the belief that all men are dumb and terrible. So don't play that game. Once she's playing games and you call her out in it and say, hey, I know you're playing games. I know you may be afraid of this intimacy. I'm here. I'm for you. I accept you. If she still is being wild and chaotic in a manipulative way, not in a conscious way, just know she's not ready to allow herself to love a man and believe that men are safe. Now, what should you look for in a woman? Look for women who reveal their vulnerability courageously and consciously, right? Because a woman who manipulates will manipulate the man to not reveal herself. A woman who reveals herself and owns her needs will not manipulate. So you want a woman who can express herself in her wildest expression healthily, not through manipulation. The shadow feminine, all feminine beings will express themselves somehow. The shadow feminine will express herself through manipulation in games. The healed, healthy feminine will express herself through courageous and fierce and owning vulnerability and communicating her needs. Now, men, this is where it's important for you guys. Truly ask yourself if you're ready for a woman in her loudest expression. Most of you are not. Can you handle not controlling a woman? If you're a man, can you truly handle a woman being the loudest, most expressive, radiant version of herself that you have no desire to dumb down and control? Because that woman will bring out all your insecurities. She'll call out your shit. She'll make you feel insecure sometimes. And all that is inviting you to step into the loudest, most divine expression of your masculinity, right? If you want a beautiful, radiant, feminine queen, can you be the king that allows her to shine to the loudest degree? If so, you have to let her dance, to move, to express herself, to be wild. Once you can allow her to be the most divine, loud, wild, radiant being, that's when the king and queen come together and create the kingdom. Now, the last point I'm making this, men need to understand that the woman will test them to see if they can handle them being in their loudest expression. And they have to create space for this testing by allowing it and revealing that they still love them throughout this process. Now, to conclude, for the feminine to surrender to the masculine long term, and surrender doesn't mean control and to submit. It means that I give my heart to you and I'm with you. I trust you. That's what surrender means with feminine. Now, she has to know that he can keep an open heart amidst her loudest expressions. If I ramp up my chaos, can this guy stay in his heart and not judge me? If I ramp up my expression, my loudness, my quirkiness, my weirdness, can this guy still love and accept me? Once she realizes that this guy can love and accept her for all her wildness, she will melt. Now, this is why women unconsciously self-sabotage, because they have to know, can this guy handle all of me in my wildest expression? And if I know he can do this, I can have kids with him because I know he won't leave me and leave me with nothing. The last piece of this is, if you're a woman and you want to know, and you need to know actually, that the man will tolerate, love, and accept the wild in you, you can go about this process consciously, by consciously inviting him to step up through being vulnerable, through being quirky and playing. If you do this, you can still have the same result without manipulation. Now, I also say this to make women feel less ashamed about their self-sabotaging tendencies, because that self-sabotaging is actually deeply wise, because women have to know that the man will not control them, right? The masculine controlling of the feminine is the deepest wound of the feminine throughout millennia. So women have to be able to test the man to see, can this guy not control me in a romantic union to feel safe? So there is divine wisdom in self-sabotage, because in that self-sabotaging, women can display their wildness and see if a man will love them through it. Thank you for watching.
I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.